All right, we are live here at LTC Heroes, the live stream. My name is Peter Lewis, and I am your host. Today, we are doing a live stream with Rachel Ann White. She is a CNA at Country Club Estates in Paola, Kansas. Before I introduce her and ask her to tell a little bit about her story, I just want to share that right before I hit record, I told Rachel that my grandparents were at Country Club Estates 10, 15 years ago. I'm from Osawatomie, Kansas, which is 7 miles from Paola. So Rachel and I just realized that we are neighbors. Rachel, welcome to LTC Heroes.
Well, hi.
I'm excited to talk to you today because the purpose of these interviews is you and I have a friend, coworker in common who teaches a lot about writing. And he told me that he had some amazing students who are CNAs. And I said, I would love to interview them about the different process of CNAs. So this is one of the first steps in a series of interviews that I'll be doing. And today we're going to talk about the staffing issue. Before, Rachel, we get into the staffing, I would just like to get to know you a little bit as a person. Can you tell me, did you grow up in Paola, Kansas? When did you become a CNA, and why did you get into long-term care?
Well, Peter, I've been a CNA since about 2007. I grew up in Paola, Kansas. Haven't left. I wanted to be a CNA because I love taking care of people and I love helping people.
Do you remember when you realized that you wanted to be a CNA, or that moment in life when you realized that you loved helping people? Some of us realize it late. Some of us know when they're 10. Do you remember?
I was about 5 years old.
And
I wanted to be a nurse.
Oh, wow. And when did you realize that you wanted to be in long-term care? I know that you might be on your way to acute care, but you're in long-term right now.
So I just love the elderly, and I love taking care of them and improving their quality of life. I knew that this was the place for me to be in, was long-term health care.
It's a story that I hear over and over, but I never get tired of hearing it, Rachel. I'm guessing you're surrounded by peers who feel the same way. But today we're talking about staffing. Staffing's been a big issue. I'm sure you've heard that over and over, not just in the last 2 years since COVID. It's been an issue in long-term care for some time. So I want to start off by talking at a high level how retention can help the staffing process. So, but before we do that, let's jump into the hiring process as part of that retention. Can you walk me through when you first started interviewing and when you first started getting hired? How were you treated? Were you recruited? Was our industry aware that we need more people like you in it?
We always need people in long-term health care. I didn't really have that big of an interview process. We are always needing people, so we are always hiring, usually when they walk through the door. Some places are more pickier than other places.
Mm-hmm. How many beds do you have at your organization right now?
Right now, I have 17 residents.
Oh, so on the smaller side.
Yes.
Are you the only CNA on the general staff, or are there more of you?
There's more of us. So I work Monday through Friday, 6 to 2.
And in terms of turnover, have you felt the burnout? Have you felt the turnover in working in long-term care in the last 2 years?
Yes. With the pandemic, I have very much so felt the burnout. I've had to take a day or two off just to recuperate. It puts a lot of strain on us over here with everything that's happened.
Have you seen any unique ways of engaging you and your coworkers in terms of staff retention? Let's say that I work at an organization right now. I'm based in Wichita, Kansas. Let's say that I'm having problems with retention. Is there anything positive you've seen that I could learn from you?
Since we are a small facility, just coming together and being a big family versus just somebody that you work with has really been the selling point for me to stay here as long as I've been here, and they work with my schedule on going back to college.
I like the fact that you pointed out something extremely human. You use the word big family, and I think that if you are going to take a pay cut as a CNA and work in long-term care when you could go down the road and work at Walmart or work at McDonald's or work at Applebee's in Paola, Kansas. You want to feel like you belong to something bigger than just a paycheck. Is that fair to say?
That's fair to say.
Uh, before, I guess where I want to go now, Rachel, in terms of retention, is how critical job orientation is as a factor for staff retention. Can you think of any unique ways that we could do a better job of job orientation? If you have a new CNA who's going to come in tomorrow and shadow you, how would you go about making sure that they feel welcome and orientated in a helpful manner?
Orientation process is very important. That way they get to know us and know what they're doing when they get here. I think being in the small facility allows me to do what I want to train them. And how I'm going to train them is I'm just going to incorporate them into this big family so that they stay and really have them get to know us.
Have you worked at many different organizations since you've joined long-term care?
I've worked at a few. I'm also an EMT.
Hmm. Are there any tips or specific days that you either implement yourself when you're training someone or you've had a supervisor use with you that works out well, like a touch point where they check in with you, or a survey or a training manual or a video that you can remember in your job orientation that helped you?
I work with a nurse who is actually my best friend, and that really helps me. And anything education wise that we need to learn, she will go over with me and
Mhm.
we can watch videos together about it. But really, her being my best friend and being the RN at our facility is the key point. We work together Monday through Thursday, and I just am in love with her. She is such a great nurse and a great person, and will work the floor if she needs to and goes out of her way to make sure we have what we need here in our facility.
Let's give her a shout out. What's her name?
Stephanie Rinky.
Stephanie Rinky.
Uh-huh.
Were you friends with Stephanie before you got into long-term care, or did you become friends at the facility?
I became friends with her at this facility.
That is really cool. That is a really cool story. I just want to take a moment and thank our sponsor, Experience Care. Experience Care is one of the oldest and best EHRs in long-term care. Thank you for sponsoring this live. Uh, Rachel, one of the things I hear over and over, and when I did my clinicals and I did my CNA training in the state of Kansas in November 2021, I was around a lot of Gen Z and millennials. And I know the way that we motivate them and we engage them can be different than my generation. I'm getting up there. I'm already on 4 decades, Rachel. Are there any unique ways that you think that we can better engage the youth who look at jobs and their profession maybe differently than myself as an older generation?
Well, I'm 32 years old, so I can kind of relate to you. I know that the younger generation uses social media and they are really big on that. And that's how I like to communicate with them. If I need to get something out to them, they will look at their Facebook or whatever form of social media they are currently using. I think that is the key to be able to communicate with them and just connecting with them more.
You work in a particularly small facility. How do you all find unique ways for making scheduling fit a younger generation that wants that flexibility?
We work with any schedule just about. If you need a day off, we're more than willing to chip in and fill in for you. And if you can only work certain days, then we understand that too. We have a few employees that we cater to their schedules. So if you just needed a weekend job, if you wanted to go to college, then you can just work here on the weekends, work doubles. Or you could, work 6 to 2 or 2 to 10 or just overnights, and we will work with you and help you the best that we possibly can.
One of the things, and I don't feel like I have the edge on this, and I don't think I can speak for everyone when I ask you about opportunities for career advancements. But one of the things that I often find when I speak to someone even older than myself, they say like there's a ceiling at the job that we have. We don't have any more titles of director of or manager of. My feeling is when you're speaking to a younger generation, they're looking for opportunities of learning, not as important as titles. So if I could invite someone to be into a social activity or participate in the creation of how we're going to do social media, that is also an opportunity for them to think about growth and career advancements. Do you agree with that? And if you do, can you think of any examples where if you have a 25-year-old who comes to you and says, Rachel, you know what? I feel like I've just hit my ceiling here, that you could be like, hey, let's engage you here and this way and that way to make you continue feel growing with us.
Well, career advancements, I think it's really important that your job supports you when you're going through this journey and encourages you along the way, which mine does. And just if they feel burnout, I will sit down with them and talk to them about it. Just talking about it and kind of unwinding really helps. I've had those times to where I get burnout and I will just sit down with my nurse and just kind of talk about it with her, and then we will figure out the solution to the problem. And maybe just taking a little bit of a break, maybe taking a day or two off, just so you can relax, because healthcare can be very demanding and overwhelming for anybody.
Mm. The burnout has caused a rapid an increase in turnover rate. There's a lot of people moving around and resigning. Do you have any kind of checkpoints in your organization where you have a superior or a peer who checks in with you before you get burnt out, so that they make sure that they are protecting your body, your mind, your energy, and your soul, so that you feel supported before you feel like you have to resign?
Our nurse does a good job of that. We have a really good owner too, but our nurse will just check in with us and see how we're doing, and we will make sure our employees that are new hires feel welcomed here, and we will check in with them to see if there's anything that they need or if they're struggling with anything. I will ask them, as the oncoming shift, if there's a problem that needs to be addressed, and I will make sure that problem gets taken care of personally.
Mm. I wanted to ask you about leadership. I'm a member of a Facebook group with long-term care nurses, CNAs, MDS coordinators, and a lot of times I'll hear someone kind of write in capital letters on the group like a complaint: I don't want candy, I want your help. Do you have any examples of leaders that you're like, wow, this was a really good example? On this day, I had, a person call in on Christmas or on Thanksgiving, and this director of nursing or this administrator really showed up and helped. Can you think of examples where a leader stood out for you and made you proud, and what it made you want to stay around and combat retention or combat resigning?
Well, my nurse is the leader that I look up to. I also try to be a leader too in this facility, as I have more responsibilities because I'm the main CNA Monday through Friday, and I'm a medication aide as well. But my nurse will make sure that I will get every other holiday off if I would like to have it off. I have 3 children, and she really just goes above and beyond making sure that I can get the time with my family.
That sounds like an ideal setting. I'm sure that there are a lot of CNAs who will watch this in the next year and like, oh, I want to go work at Country Club Estates in Paola, Kansas. What is it about your work environment that also is a key factor for retention? Is there a particular resident? Is there a way that you all approach stand-ups? Is there a way that you decorate at the holiday season or the way they celebrate your birthday? Is there anything about the work environment you're like, man, no matter where I work, I want to take this and replicate it?
For the residents' birthdays, when anybody actually has a birthday, we have one resident that will play on the piano, and we will all sing happy birthday to them. And that is such an amazing feeling, just to have a resident, sing happy birthday to you. And it makes you feel really special. And they remember your birthdays. I really love this resident. He plays the drums and piano, and he can sing too. So
that is a unique story. That is a cool story. Rachel, one of the things that I love about interviewing frontline heroes and even executives are kind of the memories that someone has in long-term care. If your oldest child were to ask you today, and say, hey mom, why are you in long-term care? Can you give me an example of why it's special? What is a memory that stands out for you? Like, this resident said this joke to me, or they looked at me in a certain way, or the way I was able to help them when they decided that they were going to pass and I was able to hold their hand. Is there a memory that stands out for you of like, this was one of the most rewarding moments that I can remember?
well, this Thanksgiving I had to work, and my daughter came with me to work and really made the holiday special for all the residents that don't have family or are not able to leave for whatever reason they may have. But she helped me serve lunch, and that really just made their day, and it made their holiday that much, greater for them. They still talk about it, and I am able to bring my kids in here, and they don't mind, and they love to visit, and they grew up their whole life in long-term health care. I have a 15-year-old, I have a 12-year-old, and I have an 8-year-old. They all have grown up in long-term health care with me. They've been to work with me plenty of times, and they just love hanging out with the residents and talking to them and visiting with them.
I love that you've brought them into your community. Hopefully, one or two of them will follow you in your footsteps. Our industry needs it. Talking about staffing is a challenge, I'm sure, for you and your leadership team. You know that this is an issue. Thank you so much, Rachel, for sharing your story of why staff retention is a way to combat the staffing crisis. You've been really helpful and insightful. You've got a inspiring story and a great career. Thank you so much for joining me in LTC Heroes.
It was good to talk to you. Thank you so much.
Talk to you soon. I'll see you in Miami County at some point soon.
Alrighty.
Bye-bye.
Bye.